Thank you for joining us today. We'll get started on today's conversation and topic over this the third year review and demystifying that process, and by hearing from those who've all recently went through the review. So as our panelists, we have Ivis Garcia, associate professor at Tenure, and then Anaid Yerena as an associate professor at UW Tacoma. And we were expecting Jose Melendez to also join us, and he may join us mid discussion. So with that, I believe so I'm going to turn it over to Ivis and sort of talk about how you wanted to frame this conversation as a more of or frame third year review as more of a helpful process for you to understand, like, establish your identity and trying to course correct if there's any course correction needs to happen, and use this third year review as a leverage instead of seeing it as an evaluation that is trying to get you. So I'll turn it over to Ivis for that. But just from my perspective, I'm an assistant professor at FSU, and this is my fourth year-ish at FSU, but I have not had my third year review done because at FSU it's second or it used to be second and fourth year review instead of having one third year review, and I'm on that cycle. So I just completed my second year review this past year, and which was more like a third year review, given that I've been here for 3-4 years by then. But so I'm here to learn as well from the panelists. So with that, Ivis, do you want to talk a little bit about the framing of this conversation and why you wanted to put this together, and how you want the panel list and panel discussion to be helpful for the broader POCIG member?
Yeah, well, thank you, Minjee, for the introduction. So in my institution, there was like several reviews. So I was at the University of Utah, and that's where I first got tenure. So I think it's important to frame the third review also like in that process, and also thinking about how it was like helpful to me and how I was able to use it. Also like think about some of the I made some mistakes as well that maybe I can talk about again getting ready for tenure. But in my institution, it was like 3 reviews. So you went to your third year review, and then you have like one that it was like more 5th and 7th, which obviously happened the year before. So the third year will happen actually in the second year, where you put the package, and then they will give you comments at the beginning of your third year. And the idea of all this is that you have like a formal review that it really looks like what you have to do in order to get tenure. So thinking about the statements that you will put for teaching, for service, and for research, just crafting that narrative and helping you out to basically think about what are your contributions and positioning yourself in the gap that you're trying to fill, but also thinking about those contributions that you're doing for teaching and for service early on. So the idea is like that these same statements that you have, it really like helps you to think through. And obviously they will change over time for your tenure package. But the idea is like to go through the whole process. In my previous, in the institution at the University of Utah, we also had external reviewers. So we did get letters, and this is not something that it will happen in most institutions, but it was really basically a way to think about it is kind of like a way to get ready. So we know that also there's like perhaps consequences, like if you don't do that well, but those things are often very, very unlikely. The whole point is that it's like a mid-review to tell you what you need to correct, and what are some things that you need to watch for. And just depending on institution, these tenure reviews could be either a way of saying you have been doing great, like in the tradition of the University of Utah, this is what it was. It's like, you are doing great in these areas, kind of like celebrating you in all your contributions, but also saying, what are the next steps? And we know that usually we tend to concentrate more on the negative things that are being said in a review. But again, I feel that your colleagues really in your institution want you to succeed and to do well. So these are things that supposed to be like helping you. And also they want you to reach out to them in this like letter. I think that many of us might feel a little bit shy of having conversations of what exactly this means. Like, for example, if somebody tells you that you need to just have publications in places that are more of impact factor, or in these particular publications, maybe JAPA or JPER, being that we are in planning. So we can always ask questions of, how we can get ready for that. And again, what I wanted to say with the framing is that your colleagues want to help you. They want you to succeed. They are investing a lot in you, in your mentorship. And again, this is just a review for you to do better. And again, like Minjee said, it's not that they are trying to get you. So the idea is like how you receive the comments and how you move forward is very important, and it will determine your future success. So I will leave it at that.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ivis. And yeah, I mean, it will depend on which institution you're at, but at FSU, we have a very supportive and open, very helpful process, and with the second and fourth year review, and really helped me to understand my identity as a scholar, and by going through the review process. Beginning to talk a little bit about the specifics of what the process looks like at your institution, maybe starting with Anaid, would you mind talking about what the process looks like at UW Tacoma, and what's required, what's the schedule like, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So to begin, we don't call it a third year review because it doesn't happen in the third year. It is called a reappointment review. And that is the way I understand it. The reappointment is halfway between the first year and when you're expected to get tenure. So that tenure clock, the amount of time that the institution gives you to apply and accomplish tenure, you have this check-in, which pretty much aligns with everything that both Minjee and Ivis have shared about. Like, it's a check-in opportunity and an opportunity to course correct. At my institution, you can be they can not reappoint you, so that is a possibility. It's not just it is an opportunity to check in and to course correct if you get reappointed, which is the reason that it happens with the materials in the second year, so that the decision comes in the third year and you're still employed by the university at that point. Because if they waited until the third year, then you wouldn't necessarily be employed by the time you find out. The process in my unit is very similar to the process of putting together the tenure packet. And that is, we provide a narrative of what we've done, what we've accomplished, what we're hoping to continue accomplishing, and we provide supplementary documentation. I don't know what else can I tell you. There is a committee. A committee is formed. So everything to me, that experience felt like, oh, this is a good practice for me of what it'll be like to put together my dossier when going up for tenure. And that is how I approached writing the narrative statement as well, as I built on that narrative statement for my dossier. What else can I share about the process? There are no external letters. It's just an assessment. It's an internal assessment. And then the Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, which is the provost at other universities, then they also write a letter of recommendation after having reviewed, because again, it is an HR decision. It is about my continued employment with the university or not. And so that's why that level of the institution gets involved in the process.
Thanks, Anaid. Ivis, do you want to share what the process looks like for what it was like at Utah?
Yeah, so I think that I already share what that looked like. So it's like 3 reviews, there's external reviewer. So it really looks like just like the process that I will have gone through. If it's okay, Minjee, I like to talk maybe more about some of the comments that I received. So so again, your letter is like divided just like your statement. So they will and by they will be like, obviously you will get like a letter from your internal committee and a letter from your chair, then a letter from your dean. You get it just depending whatever. In my university, there was like a student committee that it also gave like a letter based on your teaching evaluations and your teaching statements as well. And then you obviously get later on like a decision from the vice president in my case. But that letter, it didn't say much. So the other things were more helpful, right? Like the letters that they didn't share the letters from the external reviewers, but they did share excerpts. So inside of the chair's letter, she could quote some people talking about impacts and the importance of this research. Remember that for your external evaluators, they're mostly going to talk about your research. They're not going to be talking, they're not instructed to talk to more about the teaching and the service. But your colleagues might add more about that, and some of the reviewers might say things about it, but the main goal or the main objective of them is kind of like evaluate your research and your publications.
I have a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Quick question. So when soliciting external interest from the external reviewers, are you part of that process at all?
In my institution, yes, I was part of the process. So I was told to put together a list of like potential reviewers. And then these are people that you have to be thinking about in advance. And so these are people that are very closely related to your work. These are the people that you usually like cite in the papers that you're writing. These are people that are usually in planning. You can have, and every institution might be different. So you might add someone from political science, you might add someone from economics and so on. But the bulk of the people that might be chosen are people inside of the planning fields, assuming that again you are in the planning fields. And so these are people that you see at ACSP that might be with you in panels and things like that. So you always have to cultivate these people in the sense that it's important that they know that you exist, right? They might not have never read your paper, but this will be opportunity for them to actually read the paper. It's helpful, like if you always have a good relationship that you actually send your papers to people that you cite, to people that senior scholars that might read your paper. This is something I was actually told in my letters from the chair and also from the internal committee, they said something that you need to do is to share your papers with senior scholars. So you can get more citations. And so you, in this way, you do more networking. So these letters will actually tell you exactly like how to increase your impact. And this is something that I started to do a little bit more. So every time that I would read somebody's paper, I might write an email saying, oh, I read your paper. Thank you very much. I will like be citing it in a paper that I'm writing. Just make a list of like who are potential reviewers and make a broad list, because it's not only the people that you put forward. You will be told, oh, you will put forward this many people, maybe 10 people. But at the end of the day, those 10 will not be chosen. Maybe 3 of those will be in the list that your colleagues use, and other people that your colleagues selected. So it means that you need to make a very broad list of people that basically you're cultivating for letter writers. So that might be a list of like even 20 people that you are connected with, that you have network. It's important, obviously, that you have not worked with them directly. They're not your advisor. You're not written a paper with them. So that's important when you think about potential collaborations. So if you want me to read your letters, don't write a paper with me. That's kind of like the main rule here. And yes, I'll stop there.
So it sounds like based on your experience, if the third year review requires external reviewers and external letters, it's a lot like the actual tenure, putting together your tenure packet and review process. Versus, I would imagine that it would be, because FSU doesn't require external review for our second or fourth year. So, and I would imagine that it would be, it would be different. It was a different experience for you, Anaid. So do you want to share your experience in terms of, what you found, what were the kind of comments that you got and what you found helpful in that process? And yeah.
Yes, so I found helpful that I was able to, so in I think it was my second year. My second year, I took on more than I could chew. And that was reflected in my teaching evaluations. And so I had brought it up in the context of my describing what my teaching, in my teaching statement. And one of the comments acknowledging what I knew about the situation and putting it into context, as well as including what I had learned from the experience. This was thanks to guidance from mentors about, how to bring it up. And in one of the comments we do not have external reviewers, so my comments were not from that place. The comments were from the chair of the committee, who actually put into context, so provided additional context. I talked about what happened in the classroom because I was there, and what the situation was and what I had learned from that experience. The chair of the committee put it into context into the larger context of the research on teaching, like the teaching evaluations for women and people of color, and included in the justification, what is known about the research on how marginalized groups tend to have harsher feedback from students, and acknowledging that, in the first few years of a colleague's trajectory, it's to be expected that there will be, opportunities for growth and stuff. So that's one of the things that I found helpful, that it was clear to me that it's not something that I had to do. It's actually something that your committee is supposed to be doing. And then that goes back to what to expect from your colleagues. Well, if they're good colleagues, I guess. But as good colleagues, they provided additional arguments about what could, how that one experience could be contextualized in the broader context, especially because, as I said, the person that does review our letters, that does have a meaningful review, in my case, is the Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, or the Provost, or the Vice President, whatever the title is for that person. Think of them as the the academic side of HR, and the head of academic HR for the university. And in my case, they do make an assessment. And so my colleagues wanted to make sure that in that assessment, this person was taking into consideration the research. And everything else in my case, sorry, I need to get water.
Yeah. So while Anaid takes water, I just wanted to say that the same thing happened to me in terms of like the teaching evaluations. I had like lower than average, even though they were kind of like improving. And my colleagues wrote in the letter and cited research that said that again, that women, again, people with accents, people of color, they might have like lower evaluations. And I think that again, it's good that your colleagues are basically framing that they support you, right? And that you are expected to see these things and that they know their research. So it's important to kind of like also like the people that are in your committee, that if they are not aware, that you maybe talk to them in advance, and that you tell them that that's a concern and you have read this research, because not everybody will do it on their own. So I think that is important. I have seen cases before in where people did it themselves in the write-up, but hopefully it will not be that you have to say it, but somebody else will say that. In terms of like, again, and sorry, and I wanted to say, okay, so in terms of correction, something I did for my teaching, it was I seek the advice of the person that it was, he won like awards in the school for being an excellent teacher. So I will go and sit down in his classrooms. I will ask him to come to my classroom and to write letters. I will ask him to look at my syllabus. I went to all the teaching and learning events and took a boot camp. So something that is important is that you are making efforts to improve what they're saying that you should improve. There might be just a minor improvement. So I would not say that my teaching was like, it was kind of going up, but it's not like drastically that difference. However, the comments were also improving. So I had like an issue in terms of like organization, which later on I figure out that it has something to do with predictability. That the more predictable you are in terms of like when the homeworks are going to happen and how everything is done, and not with community engagement, it's like have to be very predictable. So again, community engagement courses are usually like also tended to, and teamwork and studios tended to be less great than lectures. So again, I think that what they want to see is efforts, and they will document some of that efforts, like if you have been doing things with the committee in order to improve. So that's something that I did. Something else I did that they said, and I didn't do from my third review to the fifth review, which they were later on in, you know, they told me from one review to the other. It was like doing my Google Scholar profile and ResearchGate. So these are things that they said that I should have done in order to increase visibility. And I didn't do them. So it's like, sometimes like, again, when they tell you things and you don't do them, I think that's when you run into trouble. So it's like, make sure that you make a list of all the things that they told you and then put an effort into actually doing those things. Something that for me was very sad, it was like that I really wanted to write a book, and I had like a book contract, And they obviously said that that wasn't a good idea. I should concentrate on more journals or higher impact factor in planning journals. So that's kind of like a decision that I have to make, even though I was kind of a little bit like, oh, I don't want to do that, but they told me that, so I know that that will help me to succeed. And that's what, I still kind of feel bad about that, and you can do whatever you want, but I just wanted to
Well,
say
there will be opportunities, Ivis.
there will be more opportunities. Yeah, that's
So,
very
no, I'm glad that you both brought up teaching and research, because I do wanted to get at this question of, what are the expectations in scholarship, teaching, and service at this level? So, and starting with Anaid, do you want to share what the expectations were for you, and then we'll move on to Ivis. And I do want to make sure that we have time in the end for questions.
I would say that, and we've discussed this recently as a faculty, that the expectations at our unit are vague intentionally. And that's not the same approach for every program. But in our program, because we're trying to encourage community engaged scholarship, both in research and in teaching, we've intentionally not said journal names. We do not have number of publications. So yeah, just the expectations are that you are making progress towards your goals, and but again, that is very particular to the unit you're in. One of the ways in which I describe this is that I really do get to define what type of scholar I want to be at the institution I'm at. And I know that that's not the case everywhere. And so I set my goals, I set my own expectations, the expectations of myself. And then the reappointment review, the way I saw it, the way I experienced it, was an opportunity for us to check in and calibrate. Like, is this going to work? Is this going to be mutually beneficial? So if this is what I, Anaid, choose to do as an academic, what do you, my colleagues, dean and provost, think about my contributions to the institution? Is this what you hope that, is this your hope? Because I'm putting forward, like, this is what I want to do. And again, that is my framing of the experience. And that was a test for me to practice articulating this information and narrating my agency in this document, and also for the institution to say yay or nay, like, oh, this makes sense, or oh wow, no, we were actually looking for somebody who was going to be more interested in getting grants, or we were hoping for somebody that was much more interested in insert academic expectation here. And so the expectations are vague, and the way I chose to interpret that is then I set my own.
Well, thank you, Anaid. I just wanted to chime in and just share what it's like at FSU, as put things into context and diversify the experience. So at FSU, in our unit, we have very clear expectation in terms of what they want you to achieve, and well, not necessarily at specific, not particular to the mid-year review process, but in terms of tenure. So the expectation for us, at least, is that, and this is because we're situated within this College of Social Science and Public Policy, where we're compared with economists, with political scientists, we're sociologists. So journal articles are the key, right, for us. So we are expected to write 2 to 3 articles per year, every year toward before your tenure. So and with the with variability, right, there's definitely less quantity expected from the qualitative researchers, and then more quantity for the quantitative researchers. But we do get a very clear directive in terms of what you're expected to do. So just wanted to put that into context as differences across the different institutions.